1, 2,
Standing
go.
by.
Everybody, you're listening to and possibly watching the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
And we are your hairy, heavy homos that talk about comic books, but you don't have to be a hairy, heavy homo to listen in. And as you may have gathered from the little sub-headlines that we have under our names here on the visual, if you're listening, you don't have the benefit of this particular technical announcement. None of us are at San Diego Comic-Con this year.
Womp, womp, womp.
Just like many actors are not at San Diego Comic-Con this year. We'll talk a little bit about that in regards to our lack of news and why there is a lack of news and an expected lack of news. But we're back with you for one of our roundtable issues. We each have some comic books that we've read. We're each battling to various degrees with the heat. How hot has it gotten by you two? I mean, I know it's nothing like the West, but
that's been like 103, 105 here.
That's bad. Okay.
Yeah, we've been in. Today was cool at only 88, 89, but we've been in the high 90s, and it's the humidity that really does.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
I have a lot of my friends have entered a phase in their life where they're follically challenged. And, luckily I haven't gotten there, and I don't, judging by the rug my dad had on his head at the time that he expired, I don't think I'm really ever going to get there. Let's hope. Let us hope. But, I was dealing with the humidity with some of the outdoor concerts and the travel. And oh boy, it does a number on you. Your hair looks completely different from how it did when you set out.
I enjoy having short hair and avoiding that problem because, when my hair's longer, it just gets.
Yeah. But I just don't want a buzz cut. I've had so many buzz cuts, and I'm just not in the mood for one right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Mine's getting floofy again, so Jason's going to have to be cutting it before he goes off to Colorado again. So, and
yours is gets a little fro-ish.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because it's naturally curly.
Curly hair.
I put a lot of product in it in the morning, and according to Jason, not enough. But I do put a good amount of product in it. But the longer it gets, the less it stays. So
I have no curls unless it the back gets long, and then I have that.
Get the flip up
kind of flippy thing.
The flippy flip.
Yeah.
2003 Abercrombie and Finch hair flip.
Oh no, honey, I'm Charlie's
flat
angel.
And flippy.
Oh no.
Ugh. No, that's the one thing and I'll talk about it because it's one of my geek gets is hair related, but I've never had a buzz cut. Ever. The closest I came, I got a really fancy haircut from some salon in Montreal. I was with a buddy of mine who was like, just let yourself be pampered. And it was so short around the back and sides and really, really, really tight around the top. But that was the closest. It felt very weird.
About it on the show. Maybe Steve, you can get did I ever tell my story about my hair going orange?
No.
Oh, okay.
Or if you did, it's so far back. Tell us now.
I don't know how we got on this about the hair, but this is a very good story. Okay, so I'm old as sand. So I was in my senior high school in 1985, and that was a time where buzz cuts just weren't in. You know, it just it just wasn't part of the equation at that point. And after the prom, I got really stoned, and I thought I was putting. Remember sun in?
Yes.
Remember that, like, okay. I was actually putting suntan lotion in my hair and not sun in. So I woke up the next day and I was Ronald McDonald. I mean, it was it was like orange. It was as orange as could be, and I was freaking out. And college is a few months, and my dad was saying, just get a crew cut. It'll grow by. Like, no, because crew cuts weren't in. So I had to get my hair dyed, and they had to strip my hair, and the only color that would like stick was this like Dick Tracy, like blue black. And the first day, and like in this, my dad must have spent a fortune on this. And like they stripped my hair. So for like 20 minutes, I was Billy Idol. And then after that, the only color that would retain was this, like I said, this Dick Tracy blue black. And the first day, it looked great. It was like, God, I look good with black hair. After that, I was like Ricky Ricardo. It was like, even if it was like fully washed, it looked greasy, and it was terrible.
Oh,
yeah. So don't get stoned on the beach and put suntan lotion in your hair. That's the piece of advice I have to offer.
Well, I mean, it's good. It's good advice.
Good piece of advice.
I mean, there are worse things. Worse colors.
That is going in the book of Xana Wisdoms.
Yeah.
Don't put suntan lotion in your hair.
Xana Wisdoms. Don't get stoned on the beach and put suntan lotion in your hair.
I like Xana Wisdoms. That's going to be like like a hip gay version, a hip geriatric gay version of Sniglets.
Yeah.
That's we got to start that now. All right.
Yeah. But so has everybody got their tickets yet? To go see either Barbie or Oppenheimer or both?
No. We actually may go see Oppenheimer this weekend. We were talking about it. I do want to see it.
Yeah, I don't get advance tickets, Steve. I don't do that.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I don't do that. I still haven't even seen Indiana Jones.
Oh yeah. Well, no. Actually, you could probably go into an empty theater this weekend and see it because everyone's going to be seeing
or
Barbie
Sound of
or
Freedom.
Oppenheimer or both.
I still haven't seen the Flash, so
what?
I still haven't seen the Flash, so
yeah. But you were kind of like I
don't have not in a big hurry to though. I just haven't
exactly So,
and it's probably not too far from HBO Max at this point. I know.
I would assume not. No.
Yeah. Yet they still don't have a Blu-ray date, which is a little strange.
Well,
I just hope that Blu-ray has like the 18 endings that they filmed for it. So,
yeah,
I mean, I would hope so to kind of push the sales on it a little bit because I think obviously the people are going to buy it. Who buy all the Blu-rays are going to buy it regardless. Yeah. But to entice sales beyond the super fan or the comic fan. They would really need to put something else on there to shit.
Speaking of blue, I know Steve. I know you're like anti-physical, effectively. But Cale, do you ever get anything on the Criterion sales?
No, I used to. I just haven't lately. I'm not opposed to it. It's just not something that's been on my like to-do list to grab. Like I said, not opposed. I just never do. Every once in a while, I'll find a collection of an entire series, and so I'll just pick up the entire series of something, but that's about it.
Okay. Yeah, I did pick up. I always feel like obligated to pick up one because the prices are so good at that time. The frustrating thing was like the last time around, Barnes and Noble extended the Criterion sale to other imprints like Arrow and Vinegar Syndrome, and this year they didn't. So there's a couple of Arrow ones I really want to get.
Interesting.
At some point, yeah.
I used to like Bill. I used to be a huge physical media person. I had, tons and tons of VHS, tons and tons of DVDs, like a lot of DVDs, and then switched to Blu-rays. And after a while, it just becomes a pain to store them.
No.
And my VHSs, I kind of didn't have a choice to get rid of them because they were all stored in my parents' basement when I moved out, and all of them got demagnetized. All of them. All of them. Don't know why. It's like maybe my parents, like on a drunken craze, took a bulk eraser to all 300 or 400 or whatever, however many I had. And then with the DVDs, I just ran out of space.
What?
So that's what.
What could you have done, Steve, that angered your parents so much that they downed a magnum of wine and just took an eraser to the basement?
This is good.
What did
Honey,
you
grab
do?
the magnets.
Just that fruit of my Lord. Fuck him. I'll show him.
We spent
there
how
was that
much
whole-
on McGill?
He brought all these movies back from college. Yeah, no, I had a huge collection, and then also with the DVDs, I used to get anytime Criterion had like a new something or other, like I had to grab it. Random horror movies, like anything from like the Italian Giallo collection, I had a bunch of them.
Let me tell you that is one genre that is very well represented in streaming.
Absolutely,
very well. You can basically find everything, I guess, because there's some of the legality of some of the distribution is kind of questionable. So, but
European rights versus
from the 70s that you can't find on like more than one site.
Yeah. I mean, I remember like having to hunt for anything. Like there was some stuff that like in the mid 2000s, late 2000s were still on VHS only. Like you could, if you find like a copy on VHS, then you could watch this whatever Italian horror movie.
Which is a problem for some anime right now.
Yeah.
There's a good amount of anime that has never made it for one reason or another to DVD or Blu-ray.
Some of them are being eventually,
or at least domestic, at least in the States they have.
Yeah. And also with all the streaming services that are specific for anime now, that have kind of taken a lot of the steam out of fans or like fan sites and fan subs. Now you can pretty much get a lot of stuff. But there are those weird ones from the 80s, especially where there's so many, you just can't get all of them.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for my, a new collection of, it was Orgus. I think it was Super Dimensional something Orgus, which had like the most ridiculous theme song.
Yeah.
You look it up. I will play it after the show. So nobody else
my
watching it.
My stuff is like the 70s Mecca, and you can get it through Discotheque Media, but it's a fortune.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god! Like to get like the 3 Mazinga volumes of Mazinga and then Great Mazinga, it's like that's going to set you back at least $300.
I was surprised. I mean, go back to like the 90s and early 2000s. I was buying, VHS. A lot of
you get like 2 episodes.
Oh yeah, 2 episodes, and you pay $30 for a tape.
Yeah,
$30 at a store, mostly Suncoast, because Suncoast had a good,
Yeah, they had the best. They had the best
selection. But then MediaPlay came along. Caleb, MediaPlay. Let me explain MediaPlay to you. It's really, it was great. It was picture Best Buy, but better, and mostly about the
sell through. Mostly sell through.
Yeah. Mostly the media part of it. So you get
one
music.
thing I like about MediaPlay, because there was a MediaPlay over where Rob's parents were, and this was when you still had to get stuff on the physical thing, and they had these like region free music DVDs, and I went in there and I'm like, there's nobody else in the States that's gonna want Shed 7. There's nobody else in the States that's gonna want these bands out like Gene, and I was like, that's mine.
Well, don't forget that one of a kind Lush box set.
Oh fuck.
Was it so? Was
someday we have to talk about the legend of the Lush box set.
Is MediaPlay like a precursor to like FYE?
No, it was
Yeah.
but no, it was Illa.
Better, way better.
F-Way goes back to
FYE's been around a long time, but
when it
MediaPlay was like
Discovery.
way
Yeah.
better, and it was huge.
Yeah.
Like the stores were just ginormous because they were
Yeah.
not.
They were like Best
connected.
Buy size.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
But
yeah.
like you didn't have to deal with like the refrigerators and stuff.
Right. They didn't.
Oh
have
yeah, and
stuff.
they had their own magazine that you could get. It was Replay magazine, and it was really good. I mean, you could get a lot of great articles.
I mean, I'm not a gamer, but there were guys that I used to know that because we didn't have MediaPlay by it like close to us.
Mm-hmm.
The closest one was maybe like an hour and 10-minute drive, and they would go every Saturday. You know, just for the and just come back with like used piles like this.
Oh yeah, I would just go. I would go and I'd get a stack of tapes, a stack of DVDs. It was tapes for a while, but then DVDs because they had anime. It was great. But I don't know if they did it by you, but by me,
they didn't do it by me. I had to travel. Yeah.
Oh well, in New Jersey maybe, but in Connecticut, they always had everything in like these giant plastic cases to. I guess dissuade people from stealing them, and like the cases were just enormous that you could like pick them up, and they all had to like unlock them. But there were like these giant clacky things that you had to deal with. But no, I loved them. Yeah, I loved them, and they're gone. They're all gone.
Okay, well, the name of the show isn't Physical Media and Hair Issue Bears. It's the comic book. We should kind of recalibrate and start talking about this now, because we had a little bit of a late start with our pre-show. We really haven't discussed the order. Do you want to just jump into Night Terrors first?
I could do that. Yeah, I mean, Caleb, is that cool? Have you read any of the Night Terrors?
I have not. This is all going to be treading new ground for me. I'm excited.
Okay. We'll talk about DC's newest crossover event.
Yeah, I've not, for reasons I will explain later.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, well that'll be good. Okay, so let's pull up the number one here, and Bill and I think the two of us we can kind of go back and forth on this one, but just to run off really quickly about this. Obviously, Night Terrors is the new summer event for DC. This is interesting because it's not entirely self-contained, but it is primarily a specific event that's running through titles that are just for this. So they are the Night Terrors titles, different, specialized books for them. And it's very reminiscent. And Bill, when you said it, I was like, exactly, Convergence from several years ago, in that all of the, the special mini titles are 2 issues each. So you have Night Terrors First
Blood.
These
titles are not being published during this 2-month window in the summer.
Exactly. The main books, like the main ongoing titles,
no Action Comics,
Wonder Woman, or Action Comics. Exactly. So instead, we're getting a Night Terrors Superman, Night Terrors Batman, Night Terrors, etc., etc.
Right. But we are also getting books with characters that don't have regular titles now, like Ravager and
Ravager. Black Adam, whose ongoing just ended. So
no, that was always a miniseries.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, it was 12 issues. I think it probably was supposed to be shorter, but
12. It was 12.
Went to 12. So a maxi series. But yeah. So it's really I would say relatively self-contained. So for the month of July and the month of August, we're going to be running through and seeing a lot of these Night Terror titles instead of the regular DC titles for most of the superhero books. And it had a nice preview in the Free Comic Book Day issue that was put out for that in May. But this number one, written by Josh Williamson, is sort of the real kickoff for Night Terrors. And let's see, it was Josh Williamson on writing duties, Howard Porter on the art, Brad Anderson on colors, and Troy Peter on letters. Now, the colors I'm going to actually highlight here. The cover pretty much does a good job of pointing out what the majority color of everything is. Purple. This very interesting purple, hazy, violet color runs throughout the entire issue. and it's just, it's around the edges, it's around the borders of each panel. A lot of like the power that's being sort of spewed forth from several different sources is just all over there. It's beautiful, but it really kind of sets a feel for this book, and I think here colors are extremely important in just sort of cementing kind of the overall aesthetic that they're going for, in this sort of dreamlike, weird, kind of gory in parts. I mean, there's some interesting gore here in the art.
Yeah. It's
where instead it's like
very much
red, it's like purple, like very, very interesting, sort of like an open organ. But yeah, I mean, to summarize the way that they kick this off, we're reintroduced to John Dee, also known as Dr. Destiny, and he's being tormented in the dream world by some unseen creature or person that's trying to get him to tell the location of the Nightmare Stone, which is the MacGuffin for the whole for this whole event. And this is also being observed by Deadman. So Deadman actually narrates pretty much this entire issue, and he's trying to bring attention to what's happening here, because he knows, since it's bleeding over into, from the realm of the dead and the realm of dreams into the realm of the living, he wants to let the Justice League know what's happening. He tracks down Trinity, who have also all been drawn to the recently closed Hall of Justice. And there they discover what they think is the corpse of John Dee, just horrifically mutilated and spewing sort of purple light. And also, Bats gets himself a call from Harley Quinn saying, "Hey, John Dee is here. Dr. Destiny is here, and he doesn't look too good. Something's happening to him. It's really crazy." So, of course, now we've got two Dr. Destiny corpses or bodies, in two different places. Deadman, of course, trying to explain by possessing Batman, which does not go very well, what he's seeing. And so, of course, the Trinity splits up, to go and figure out what's going on. Batman to Arkham Asylum, Superman to go, up to space to talk with the Supercorps, and Wonder Woman stays behind to work with some of her fellow Justice League Dark members, Zatanna and Detective Chimp, to try and figure out what's going on here. And clearly things don't go well. And the big bad of this whole thing, Insomnia, makes himself known. And his plan, in order to find the Nightmare Stone, is to put everybody on Earth to sleep and torture them through nightmares to have somebody divulge the location of this Nightmare Stone, wherever it may be. And I think they've actually mentioned the Nightmare Stone somewhere previously in one of the other Dawn of DC titles, possibly during Dark Crisis, right before Dawn of DC. I think there was something.
It's not really resonating. If they mentioned it, I didn't say, "Oh, look at that. That might have ramifications."
I wonder if that is important for something later on. Like, I think it was just if it was mentioned, it would have been a throwaway thing. But apparently, this Nightmare Stone is very important, and if Insomnia gets a hold of it, then I guess, reality will be rent, and, the dead and the living will be thrown together. I don't know, whatever. But it's cool. It's a good setup for any kind of comic book event, crossover series like this. I'm excited. And I really like this as a first issue. There will be a second issue next month, I think, to conclude it. And then probably going to be
sort of like an Alpha and Omega.
Yeah. But I've also been reading some of the other, issue number ones that have come out. Bill, have you gotten a bunch of those?
I've gotten the first week because of the DCBS, but let's just stick with First Blood because there's some things that I liked about this. Mm-hmm. One was I loved Deadman breaking the fourth wall and talking to the reader. How they've never really done this in the past on a continued basis is beyond me, because it's a device that works well. It's an ideal character that could do that, particularly with the body hopping. I also love that he hopped into Batman and that didn't go well.
blah, like it was.
I just love through this that there were like these really great, like not funny moments, but moments of humor, like when Zatanna said crap backwards. You know, like just these like little things. Now you'll notice there the middle name is Howard Porter. I've talked about this in the past. I loved Grant Morrison's JLA in the late 90s, but the downside of it was Howard Porter's art. I never resonated with me. His bodies are weird. Everybody looks like they have a toothache. You know, the facial expressions are a little strange for me. Then he adopted that really stylized Justice League 3000, and boy, I really didn't like that. This, he's kind of like in a better element for his strengths, so it didn't bother me as much. He's still like miles away from, you know, anything that I would consider a favorite artist, like, you know, my continents away from that. But this did use him a little better than some projects have. He's just one of those artists that it just you know, when I see his name in a solicit, because I really don't have very fond memories of certain aspects in the past of his career. But I did like it. I love that this is horror, but it's not magic. And I love that explanation about the nightmare realm. And when they did just that moment where they did discover that, you know, that the inhabitants were creeping into ours, I just thought that was so creepy how that came to pass. And I also love that it, at its heart, it's a horror story with superheroes. Other than a horror story that has superheroes in it. Because, you know, what's at the core of these characters is what's being attacked effectively. So I thought for first issue was pretty good, but Dead Man, for me, that particular treatment, I really want to see that in the future. I really do. I want to see a Dead Man series where he breaks the fourth wall, whether it's comedic or not. It worked wonderfully for the brief portion of the issue that was dedicated to that.
I agree. And you know, I agree what you say about Howard Porter. I mean, his style is very unique and not necessarily everybody's favorite aesthetic.
But you know, at the same token, hey, he has the style. You know,
he does. It's very like it's very distinct. And here, I think it looks great because, you know, again, combination of the coloring, because the coloring's really driving home sort of that murky sort of you know, horror element, but it's like a lush horror element to bring back lush. But it's really, really an intriguing look for this book, and I think it was a good choice for DC to go with Porter style art and in this color scheme.
He and Williamson,
and also, sorry,
yeah, he and Williamson work well together too. I mean, they did that Deathstroke Inc. book together. So back in the day, it was halfway decent.
I don't think I read that. I know, Bill, you were.
What?
You were reading Deathstroke Inc., right? I didn't read it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it wasn't anything like winning awards. It was fun. It was
but it was
serviceable.
There's a friend of mine, Jen Coalition, who had this saying: "If she saw a play, how was it? It was good."
How many O's are in there?
What I'm hearing. So, Steve, before you go into the other issues, I just have to tell you that I only read the first week.
Okay. Yeah. Same here.
Okay. So then we can go. I can flip up a book and you can tell me what you thought about it. This one I liked.
Hold on. Let me.
Night Terror's Black Adam.
I did want to pause real quick because the cover here kind of gives something away. The cover of Night Terror's First Blood #1 gives something away. And it is down here in the left-hand corner of issue #1. There is a certain figure that is represented here right behind Zatanna on the issue of First Blood. Yeah, that is Wesley Dodds himself.
Yeah.
Original Sandman from.
I was looking at the
from
Black
30s,
Adam.
40s.
I was like, what is
Like,
that?
oh, he's not there on the Black Adam cover, but maybe he is. Maybe he's hidden in every one of those covers, just like Pandora was back in the.
I was gonna ask about that because you spoke about every single person on the cover except for him.
Yeah.
He doesn't show up.
He's not in this story.
in this issue. But I find it really interesting that they're kind of letting the cat out of the bag. For those of us who don't read, preview solicits 3 months in advance or 2 months in advance or whatever, that Wesley Dodds is going to be featuring somewhere in this series, and this could be a return, really to maybe more of the main title somewhere, maybe JLA or JSA. So let me remove this in. I've got a couple of the covers here.
Well, I'll just chime in. This one, okay. So you go to Black.
Here we go.
Adam.
Yeah, let's go to the Black Adam. Yeah,
I really liked his costume in this. That redesign. Like his nightmare is Kondak in, one sort of Armageddon or another, and that's where he's at. I imagine as the series goes on, there'll be more of an understanding why there's a talking cat that's with them.
Yeah.
But I thought it was really well paced. I thought you got a very good understanding of the character, and though you can't see it much, there's a slight redesign of his costume that I thought worked really well. So
it says Hahn. Did Jeremy write this?
Jeremy Hahn.
Yeah, Jeremy Hahn wrote and drew this book.
Yeah.
I didn't know Jeremy. Okay. I didn't know Jeremy was doing a book at DC.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he wrote and drew this.
You'll see that some of the, much like Convergence, some of these are people that haven't worked at DC in a long time or don't usually work at DC. I guess because 2-issue gig is kind of appealing, Oh,
and it's a good paycheck too.
So that's that you'll see with some of the names, and then some very familiar names. But this one I was very high on.
Well, I haven't read this, but Jeremy has a gorgeous line, and he's so I mean, besides that, he's a friend. So like, I encourage anybody and everybody to read that. But his line is spectacular. Yeah,
and I think you'll like it. There's a fluidity to it that I think you don't. Especially coming off the Black Adam film, I think there might have been like a kind of a justification for evoking some elements of that, and this is far away from that. It's it has a really nice flow to it, and I like this one a lot.
And again, with Bast, the cat, a Bast, not the Bast, as Adam says. It's very interesting as a companion character for this 2-issue thing. So obviously that might have a little bit more bearing because some other book that has used Bast as a character in the past, or Bastet, was Sandman.
Yep.
And of course, when we're dealing with dreams and nightmares, and I think there's even a comment, something about, the realms of death and the realms of dreaming are close. Deadman says this, that are so close they might as well be siblings. So, okay, cool. This was really, I really enjoyed this one. This is my favorite cover of the first week.
Yeah.
Just
because
this has gotten
the most notoriety out of it.
Just because I love it. And that's, who is the author of that? Rosenberg.
Matthew.
But I was this was a lot of fun. I'm trying to think. Batman again, kind of.
I didn't like. I found this really hard to follow.
It's a little bit more.
This is a bit of a bait and switch because that whole element of Bruce with his parents is a very minor part of the storyline, and there's also a Robin backup, which is the Damian, and Damian's drawn in a somewhat cartoony style, and it just doesn't work. This whole issue,
David LaFuente, David LaFuente style on it. It's almost I would say a little bit manga-esque, but not really. It's kind of manga adjacent.
This whole issue was a turnoff. I didn't like this.
Well, and also, part of this issue was kind of already shown in the first book, like the terrors.
And also there's also an element of it in the free comic book day preview as well.
Exactly.
So it just felt like you've already seen this. So
I don't have the images on it, but I do have the Poison Ivy.
Yep.
Which was insane.
Yeah.
It was weird. Poison. So it's Ivy and Harley.
Yeah.
Ivy wakes up.
Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, Ivy wakes up in this idealized suburb where everybody's, all of the Bat characters and villains and heroes are all kind of neighbors and acting really weird. Very bizarre art. Who did the art on this one? This was it's G. Willow Wilson writing it. Very interesting. But also it was let's see, Adequan Ilan on pencils and Mark Morales on inks. So
very cool. Yeah,
double duty there. But very, very interesting, very weird. Also, we had Ravager. Like Bill said, there's characters here that are getting a 2-issue miniseries and they don't have their own titles. This one was also a little bit hard to follow.
Yeah, but it also had Ed Brisson is just so good with blood. He's really good with
so much blood.
There's a lot of blood.
So much blood.
But I do think this was like a kind of thing with Black Adam, where I think a lot of the threads will tie together. Why is she a member of Stormwatch? With these things that came out of nowhere, which could be. I mean, let's face it. When we've all had dreams. I've had combinations of people who, in real life, though they're both part of my life, would never interact with one another. And like that made me kind of buy it a bit. But I also did appreciate that they give a spotlight to a character that hasn't had much of a spotlight lately. So I like when they have these kind of crossovers that some characters that may have traction down the road. There's a little taste for them for people to get used to them.
It's just interesting that they brought Storm. I haven't heard anything about Stormwatch coming back, and it's it's interesting that she's a part of it. But the fact that they brought it back at all, I mean, there hasn't been a Stormwatch book in. I mean, they mentioned it in the Wildstorm book that they did a while back, but other than that, what was it? New 52.
New 52. There's a casual mention to it in Superman and the Authority.
Yeah.
Very casual mention of it, but that's the last time we've had anything.
Well, apparently,
and interestingly enough, Stormwatch might be playing more of a role here. It sounds like this is kind of a vehicle to bring back some interesting characters. Whether they're going to play a prominent role going forward or not, or just it would be neat if we put Stormwatch in this thing. Stormwatch appears to be working with Amanda Waller in some capacity.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's more. And again, we've only really seen, both of us have really only seen the first week. There were several more titles last week and this week. And again, more. All the rest of the ones are are next week.
But I think at the very least, between the Joker and the whatever the hell, the Night Terror, what is this called? First Blood.
First Blood.
Yeah, I think. And just to cut to the chase, the Joker's in everybody's nightmare, which is an office job. So,
but for him, is very particularly.
Yeah.
It's also cool to see G. Willow Wilson back. Like, she hasn't been around in a little bit. I haven't seen or heard of her on a book in a while now.
She was on a Marvel book. I forget.
Yeah, she's been on,
but
she's been on a Marvel book. She's had her own indie titles.
Has she?
Yeah,
she hasn't been on my radar.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, what was the last one?
Because she wasn't doing Miss Marvel for a long time.
No. She's been off of that for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was her latest title? Yeah. She has done some Poison Ivy books, obviously, but.
That's just not a character I glean to. So.
Yeah.
But it like Steve said, it's of the books that we showed, that one's the most insane.
Yeah. It's insane.
That's the biggest roller coaster ride, and like sometimes in the space of 3 pages, it totally shifts. Yeah.
The character that was in there.
I do love Suburban Selena Kyle. I absolutely loved Suburban Selena Kyle. I would be very happy to get like Suburban Selena Kyle Night Terrors. Yeah.
Oh. There is a character in there, and again, because I don't read the Poison Ivy title, I didn't recognize her. What was it? Anna from HR?
Well, that's not. She's not part of the ongoing.
She isn't. Okay, because apparently, Ivy recognized her.
I mean, I'm a little bit behind, but I don't remember Anna from HR.
Anna from HR, it's something. Whoever this person from HR is, she somehow ends up in Ivy's nightmare. So we'll see. But,
all right,
but yeah, I mean, it's cool. Yeah,
there you go. Cool. So that's DC of the present, and I understand Caleb has an Omnibus, which is DC of the past.
I'm gonna do. I'm going to do a little bit of a throwback, but I want to harken back to that explanation I promised you guys earlier. So one day, I guess it was about 3 months ago now, getting close, I had just taken I'd kind of cleaned my office, organized some bookshelves, and just like looked at all of these really, really nice Omnibus, collected editions, whatever you want to call them, that I haven't been able to read yet. And we're talking about all kinds of stuff, Brian Boland, Judge Dredd, just a ton of stuff that I wanted to read. But at the same token, I was also sitting there with, my giant stack of weekly books, and I was reading them, and I'm like, I've read 40 issues or 60 issues since the last issue I've read of this. Like, I'm reading, Wonder Woman 897, and I'm like, I don't remember what happened in the last issue because I've read so much since then. I was like, you know what? Let me take a pause for the cause. Let me let my monthlies, I'm still buying monthlies, still buying floppies, but let me, my weekly issues, let me just let them build up for a while. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to read some collected editions. And I'm going to actually read the stuff that's on my bookshelf or reread some stuff that I haven't read in a long time. And so I've been doing that, have read some really good stuff. But one of the things that I recently read for the first time, and happily so, was this big fella, which is The Question by Dennis O'Neil and Dennis Cowan, that came out in the late 80s. I think it was, what are we talking, 86, 87 is when the first issue.
I want to say 87 is post-crisis.
Yeah, so it's as old as I am. Just had to throw that little dig in there. No, but I had never read this before. And I love that they used the same cover from the first issue in the first trade for the actual omnibus. But I've been wanting to read this, and I picked it up because I've read a lot about Ditko over the past few years, mostly because of our friend Dr. Zach Crusay. His book came out. And so I'd been wanting to learn more about these characters that Ditko created and the legacy behind them, and read them. So I was like, I need to read this. It is a legendary book. It's in the pantheon of comics. I think it's definitely part of comics canon, and things that should be read. So I was like, let me check it out and read it. And I'm certainly glad I did. Now, I'm not about to go through issue by issue and tell you about The Question and this iteration of it. Just want to do a brief overview and hit some high points, and then really kind of talk about what O'Neil did philosophically with the book. So the book, as you know, this character of The Question, he is Vic Sage. In his day job, he is a reporter. He is an anchorman for KBEL, and he lives in Hub City, which is kind of a shithole. It might be the worst city to live in that's not called Gotham in the DC universe. I mean, it's just grimy and nasty and all kinds of bad. So, the story really kind of begins with Vic Sage being killed. The Question is killed, and he's brought back by Lady Shiva. And so there's this whole rebirth moment being brought back that really separates this character from what came before in that iteration. I thought that was cool. So the main points in the book are, Vic Sage is very close proximity with the wife of the current mayor. The current mayor is a drunk mess. He's a terrible person, terrible politician. But Vic has had a relationship before with the woman who's now married to him. So there's this whole not necessarily unrequited, but it's like they are both in the wrong place at the right time to carry on their relationship. Inevitably, she turns and she is going to run for mayor, and she gets into politics. And there is this whole arc about these, the different, the corruption in both the police force and in the local politics, and all of these things that he has to go and uncover. You get some really great drop-in appearances. The Green Arrow shows up in this, which yeah, it was amazing. And look, Green Arrow,
the hard traveling hero, Green Arrow.
Yeah, just Denny O'Neil's Green Arrow shows up in this book, and
he shows up a couple times.
Oh yeah, he has a couple appearances, and there's some other DC characters. Not only that, I don't think not that Green Arrow's not. I mean, he's a member of the Justice League, but you don't get Superman. I don't think you see a glimpse of Batman, or there's a couple of like tie-ins to some Bat books. There is a tie-in to some annuals that we do see Batman. There's a Detective Comics annual, Green Arrow annual, and of course the Question annual that all tie into it. But we inevitably, where we end up is this question about politics and this race, and who deserves to be there, who doesn't deserve to be there. You've got some really interesting things happening. My background and my undergrad degree is in creative writing, right? So I like to tie this into, and as I read comics, even if I'm reading older comics, I always like to look and see, hey, what does this say about today? What does this mean for the world we live in? I am fascinated by this book because Denny O'Neil practically in 1986, 1987, pre-90s, practically called Trumpism, literally down to the colored hats, because when they were going, the bad politician gave out green hats to all of his people and said, if you're wearing these, you're safe. If not, you're going to get beat up, because they hired all these like ruffian bikers, these very white, very, very crazy people to go in there and rough them up. The aspect of fake news plays a huge role in this. Just all of these elements of Trumpism. He pretty much predicted that. And it kind of reinforces and drives home that we live in a cartoon world right now, right? Our reality is a comic book villain reality that is made manifest, and it was predicted, in the late 1980s. In this book, you can see how he was tracing the map of post-Reagan America and where it would inevitably lead us, and he was not wrong. So that to me is fascinating. But also when you get to like the Ditko-ness of this series, O'Neil came out and in a couple of interviews, if you go back and read the stuff, and again, shout out to Zach for taking time out of his busy schedule to actually talk to me about these things to help me better understand it. But O'Neil has came out in several interviews and say he was really trying to break the path of what Ditko, what O'Neil perceived to be Ditko's philosophy of the character. He was really trying to divert that and subvert it. And he did not do a very good job. Actually, what he did is he really underlined and emulated a lot of Ditko's personal philosophy unbeknowingly into this character when you get into the Zen elements of the book and these meditations. Because if you think about Ditko and you talk about what he believed, if you go to your local comic shop and you just talk to your person who's vaguely ingrained in this, they're going to tell you, oh, Ditko was like a Ayn Randian style libertarian. And I think that's a very juvenile understanding of what Ditko's personal philosophy was. If you go back and you read the academia now and you check out some of the books that have been written, then you'll see that it was broader than that, but he did line up very closely with it and was probably the closest thing at the time he had. So, but what they deal with in this book, you deal with a lot of questions of identity and of not only that, like personal responsibility to your identity, because you have Vic Sage, who is an anchorman and a very public person, and you have the Question. These are the same person. They share a brain, right? It's just a mask and some gas that changes everything. But they go in and they have to do some really important work, because there are things that the Question can do that Vic Sage can't do or won't do, because for ethical reasons and also to save his own grace. But so there's this question of what are your personal ethics and how do you divorce yourself, and can you divorce yourself from it? And what does that mean for the world that we live in as people? Thought that was fascinating. And then as they dig through these books, you really get into what it means to take a life and the right to kill, which is something that if you read Ditko books, Mr. A and stuff like that, really he's having these philosophic conversations with his work. And this book talks about that. It doesn't subvert it at all. In fact, I think it really drives it home. So a few key points. There's one issue. There's many issues that stand out, though. But one issue that I really, really, really just, it shocked the shit out of me, and like I had to stop for a second. But it's issue 15, which I think is a kind of an infamous issue. It's very unfiltered, and you have a guy who is a raging racist, right? Like he just N-bombs, like unedited, all in the book, and you just hate this guy, right? And so does Vic. But at the end of it, the guy sacrifices himself to save Vic. And Vic refuses to create a hero out of him, but it fucks with his head, right? Because you have a despicable, degrading person who did something that was selfless, and you don't know how to work with it. And there are questions that Denny O'Neil and Dennis Cowan create in this book, and they're having this conversation that I don't think they were equipped to answer. They don't really go in and they don't answer these questions, but they at least present them. And I think it does create a conversation in the work itself about what they were talking about at the time, and what, I think those questions are still valid. And those conversations are had today. Although, again, we don't read this in a vacuum, and I don't know that this book could have been made. Like, I was sitting there asking myself, like, how, like, this feels like a Vertigo book in that moment, because it was just like I said, the language that they use is just stark and striking. And I was just like, I can't believe this is a DC comic. But ultimately it makes you ask questions, which, is the point. And so I really, really, really encourage you to read this if you have not. It's in some ways a time capsule. It's in some ways timeless. And so read it. You'll be better for it. Sit down and, like I said, read this book and sit down and ask yourself, what does this mean for the world we live in today? What does this have to do with our life and our culture and where we're at, knowing full well that it comes out of like a very post-Reagan view of consumerism and media influence and politics and grime and just the nasty parts of America that we still have not reckoned with in our own identities and stuff like that. So go check this out. It is, if nothing else, for the Bill Sienkiewicz covers, just all of these stuff is amazing.
See, that's interesting. And this is something I think a lot of people forget. Those aren't Sienkiewicz covers. Those are they not? From the first issue. Those are all Cowan Sienkiewicz covers.
Yes,
Cowan doing the layouts and then Sienkiewicz doing the inks, but very much Sienkiewicz inks.
Yeah,
and I think they were just a fantastic team.
Oh, they were so great together, and I think Sienkiewicz actually inked him in some of the book as well, not just the covers.
Some of the issues, not through the run. Yeah,
Sienkiewicz did an amazing job, like taking Cowan and just like you said, they're definitely Sienkiewicz, but he really does bring out something. It's not overpowering, but it is like adding the right spice.
It's a meld that really
it's beautiful. It is a thing of pure beauty.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I read this run. A long time. I mean, I certainly will echo a lot of the things that you said. That it was a landmark run. There were times that you're reading it where you're like, I know it's a DC book, yet it seems to, cover some terrain that's so far away. But at the same token, you'll have like 2-3 issues like that in a row, and then you have that great issue with the Riddler in Love. You get these like crazy things. I love that they were able to get, I think, 38 issues with
I believe so,
without a disruption. And I think in some ways, with however you look at it, the question, for good or bad, is the ultimate libertarian objectivist comic book character. And I think with O'Neill's involvement, I think that O'Neill doesn't share that philosophy himself.
Mm-hmm.
He was effectively DSA his entire life. I think in some ways he's a better suited writer for a character like that than somebody that does share, because I think some of Ditko's stuff is really hard to read, man.
It is.
It's really hard to read. And I think some of it is passion for that particular perspective on life. And I think it's better served. The character is better served by somebody that doesn't necessarily share that worldview.
Well, and
it makes for better stories, I think.
Well, but to that point, Bill, I think it's also important to say that he's very respectful of that mindset.
Oh yeah,
when he deals with it, like he's not.
You never feel like it's invalid.
Yeah, we've read books where
perspective. I mean, because the stuff that he does show, the real dark edge is so far over the top that I think even somebody like Dicko that has that, that has that perspective would agree that, whoa, that's where we're headed. If we buy into this, so I think there's a lot of things, but even back then there were elements, there was, garbage TV like Geraldo and
Morton Downey Jr.
Morton Downey Jr. Maury Povich was a little more respectable at that time, but
Povich would have been Who's Your Daddy, but actually no, he was on Current Affair at that point.
Yeah, so the elements were there. I just don't think if those elements were there coupled with social media, we may have gotten to this area, to this kind of situation where we're in the States right now a lot sooner.
Oh, I mean,
but like you said, there's he did have access to a crystal ball in some way.
Yeah, and
there's some things that and I also do think it was one book that I would read in clusters. I would let issues pile up, and I do think it reads a little better collected than it does.
It was hard to put this book down at several moments. And forgive me if just do a lot of history, but the 24-hour news cycle had not ramped into itself, or was just being born at this time, correct?
There were some arguments to that, that it was because it seemed that the kind of 24-hour news cycle issues that really resonated until you got to Iran-Contra,
right?
Were like Baby Jessica down the well, or the Challenger explosion. They were effectively apolitical. And when you got to the end of Reagan's second term, it did feel a little more like we were entering into that cycle proper. So,
it was the first Iraq War, first Gulf War that really solidified the 24-hour news cycle. I mean, CNN was working.
I remember watching CNN
around
during
early 80s,
Contra, and it was present. It was present during Tiananmen Square. Those all predated that. So that element was there, but it was effectively in its infancy, and the treatment from the various news sources wasn't always the same.
No. But most people were still getting their news from either newspapers or from the networks. So,
but I will agree with you that once we got to the Iraq War, the Desert Storm, it was
live.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and there was some weird stuff.
And I think just to wrap it up, one of the things that O'Neill and Cowan did that really worked in this book is they bolstered this point that they're making. They bolstered this idea by really showing you not only they didn't show you a hero throughout the whole thing, but they filled it with number one, they trusted their reader. O'Neill is quoted as saying, "Hey, I wanted to write a book that it would make a 12-year-old think." I don't know what 12-year-olds are reading this. They should. It'll make them think. But it's filled with philosophy. I mean, you're talking about things like the art of war. I mean, you've got a character named Aristotle, but so there's that. But they also filled the book with the quote unquote everyman. The book has a lot of boots on the ground texture of citizens and how their lives are affected by these things. Yeah. And it doesn't really delve into a bootstrap mentality in this, but you do see, there's a scene where a woman just sits on a bench and is waiting for a bus to take her to work that is never going to come. And it's going to disrupt her whole life. And it is bleak and it's quiet and it's sad, but it's effective. And so you really see just how the minutia of the world is affected and affected personally by these things. So again, I don't want to take up. I mean, I could talk about this shit forever, but yeah, worth the money. We're absolutely worth the money. It holds up. It still reads really well. Some of the language is dated. Some of the language is hard to read, but we're adults, and I think we can contend with that in our literature. Yeah. So recommended.
And I also do believe that was one of DC's earliest books with the mature readers imprint on it.
I could believe that, and it was.
I think the Ostrander Spectre was the first. that was not a mini series that was ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, like stuff like Nathaniel Dusk and Watchmen definitely had that tag. But I think on the of the ongoings, I think this was right after Spectre. And Spectre was really like that was mostly like nudity and shit.
The
really...
issue where he's reading Watchmen and he's talking about Rorschach.
Where he talks about Rorschach is
oh my god,
one page too. It's one page, but there's a lot on that page.
There was so much. There was so much, and it worked so well. It was brilliant.
It was like one of those things. Like if the last word was Herm, I totally would have been like, that would have it totally would have fit.
Yeah.
But I do think when you're talking about Everyman, like even the characters that come from the DC universe, like the ones we've mentioned, Lady Shiva, Richard Dragon has a role, especially in the beginning. They're non-powered hero, they're non-powered characters, and even though there's some mysticism that's been hoisted on this character, I think more with what Rucka did later on.
Yeah.
Which I think is still remains in line, but that feeds into the elements that you talked about what makes this series so attractive.
Yeah.
So.
No, and even Green Arrow, like his powers being really good with a bow and arrow and a billionaire.
But it's like the Green Lantern, Green Arrow.
Yeah.
Even though he's wearing the stupid late 80s hood. It's my Ollie, so
yeah,
it's good.
Well,
good
I'm
stuff.
glad I read this. I'm glad I get to talk about it with y'all because the conversation, with you colors the way that I read this book. So thank you for going on that journey with me. I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah. Like I said, it's been years. It's been the early 90s. Was the last time I touched it when the book ended. That's the last time. Never returned back to it. But as you can tell from our discussion here, it was a very valuable reading experience.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I never read it, probably won't. But anyway, no. I love listening to it. Both of you guys talk about it because it is probably a book that I won't.
You
have
would
a
like
chance
it.
to read with everything else.
I think you would like it. It's just you only have so many.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
But no, I mean it's
like
good.
You were mentioning like Judge Dredd. I have Judge Dredd books. I don't think I'm ever going to read them.
The Judge Dredd collections, the case books, and the
no, I have the Eagle.
Oh my god, great!
Yeah, that's what I have.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I got those.
I've got the artist edition, so like the Brian Bolin, and so you have to get them all because it's just the ones that they drew, and like the way that 2000 AD that they had a different artist come out different each week to keep it rolling every week. So you have to get them all because you're only getting part of the story as it maps through. So I've got a few more to get, but I've got a couple of them and they're fun. But I'd never
That's one thing I got to say though is like the 80s, like the first time this stuff was printed in the States on Eagle and the associated series like Nemesis and the stainless steel rat or whatever the hell that was.
Yeah.
You can still find them cheap.
Dog.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Dog. Yeah, you can still find them really cheap. Yeah. Zenith.
Yeah. So it is not very pretty.
Carlos Esquerra being my favorite of these artists. Also, while we're talking about Dredge, we didn't really talk about news, but some really sad. Like apparently they're not going. Like Heavy Metal's not going to get published. Which I know is, that's a weird connection. It's Judge Dredd was not Heavy Metal.
But there were there's issues that just aren't coming out.
Yeah.
Where the work was.
I mean, they canceled. They had solicits for the next 4 issues. I think. After, and I know the first one that was published.
The first was published, and there's also like a special version of it at San Diego.
San Diego's going to have it.
Whatnot Publishing is just not going through with it. So
yeah.
Sad day. I don't know how.
And there's some good names. There's some good names.
But the thing is that it's too valuable a name.
Yeah.
There's too much value in that name for it to be dead.
Yeah. I did want to mention before we go on to the next book, John Westhoff is joining us, throwing the devil horns, and he has something to celebrate right now.
Yes.
Because I just saw at 10 o'clock that the Drumsticks 1 through 4, issue number 4, the finale of that arc, has been kickstarted. It has been fully
Awesome.
funded.
Congrats, John.
Congrats to Part-Time Comics for Drumsticks of Doom number 4.
I've got my Part-Time Comics guitar pick around here somewhere. I keep it close.
Yeah, I have mine over here too.
I think I have the last issue of Drumstick of Doom right in somewhere. Oh, I had it right here.
Comics.
I might have put it away. No, I do have it. Excellent. Yeah, here's my issue number 3 of Drumsticks.
Nice.
So it'll go with the number 4 that'll be coming soon. So that's awesome.
Congrats. I know I made a kind of declaration a few months ago where we were going to talk about DC and Marvel first. I have a Marvel book to talk about, but I think we need a little break from it. So, Steve, I know you've got a book written by a prominent writer, and then Caleb has a little bit of manga. So why don't we hit those 2 first, and then we'll wrap up with the Marvel.
That sounds great.
So structure-wise, it seems it'll work better.
So I did also want to say we have where is it? Aha. Excellent. Okay. Yeah, great radio right here. So I did want to also mention we have Mr. David Hazan also joining us, saying hello with a wave. Hello, David. Who also just recently was involved in a Kickstarter that was successfully funded last week, I think it was, and it was Requiem number 1 with Christoph Bogach, and I know I'm probably pronouncing that horribly wrong, but the Requiem number 1 has also been fully funded, so I'm also looking forward to reading that when it gets published and sent. Okay, so yes, I do have an indie book. And this one's kind of interesting because it started in an earlier form on Substack. So a couple of years ago, a lot of writers were just making a beeline to Substack to go ahead and publish some interesting works, some web comics, a lot of essays, things like that. So we had a lot of big players, James Tinian, Jeff Lemire, several big names.
And also there are also creators that have used Substack for different reasons, like Grant Morrison's one.
Exactly, his newsletter is great,
but he doesn't provide the graphic content in that. But I don't want his Substack to change at all. I love that.
Absolutely. But Jeff Lemire, speaking of, had been putting a lot of interesting ideas and some experiments out there on Substack. Some initial web comics essentially. Pertaining to this book. But when he had the opportunity to write, we got Kitty over here. That's Mafanomi. When he got the opportunity to actually bring it out and publish it, he took what he had done on Substack, reviewed it, revised it, changed it, and gave us Fireflies number 1. Now, I have the Peach Momoko cover, so it's a little bit different. This is the Jeff Lemire cover.
Hang on. You just triggered something in me.
Oh, triggering.
I ordered this and I didn't get it. Yeah, so. All right. Proceed.
I shall proceed.
Carry on.
Carry on. But yes, so Fireflies is at heart essentially a book about this interesting little girl who's kind of strange. She's a loner. She's a little bit kooky. She has an abusive alcoholic dad and kind of is on her own, out in the country here. And this takes place in Essex County, of all places. It is very much in that similar vein where Jeff Lemire has kind of returned to that sort of rural Ontario Canadian setting. And this book actually starts off with 3 local kids heading out to a convenience store to go and buy some ice cream, and a tragic situation occurs. And this little girl becomes involved with the, I would say, the criminal who is the cause of this tragic situation. Also happening at the same time, it's the arrival of the Fireflies, also known as shadflies or any other kind of flies. These are summer flies that swarm in very disgusting ways. They're crunchy. They get on everything. They breed and then they die within about a week. But they are, of course, all over this town, and are a very constant graphic element that's in almost every page, but also just a very I think it brings texture also to the sound, because there's a lot of pages where it's all black with a crunch, and you can feel yourself stepping on just a pile of like these fish flies and just getting that crunch. And it's really interesting how he superimposes that, because it's Jeff Lemire. It's very Jeff Lemire. It's kind of dark. It's a little off. And this one, I think, is going to be a little bit more fantasy than anything else, mostly because of that last page.
Mm-hmm.
This is definitely the book, and you should do this with every Lemire book. Read the back matter, because he gives his whole process. He talks about where this idea came from. He talks about his own personal experience with fish flies. In fact, while he was filming the recent Essex County TV series, which was excellent. You can get if you're in Canada, you can watch it on CBC Gem. If you're anywhere else on the planet, get a VPN and watch it, because that's it. That's the only way you'll be able to see it. I don't know if it's coming to the US at all or to other markets, but it is a beautiful book, a beautiful series based on it. Is it going to be on Netflix?
I think with the writer's strike,
I can see it happening.
It's one of those things
Maybe.
that's now like a bit more fast tracked in the States.
Could be, because I know that CW is putting a lot of Canadian series, very recent Canadian series now on their normal rotation. So maybe.
And I gotta say, some of the acts of desperation are pretty interesting, like CBS airing the British Ghosts, and Yellowstone, which I imagine is going to be edited to. But
I mean, they're not
with a warning. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, I believe I read somewhere that was a series under consideration for Fox, maybe. I don't know.
I hope so, but I also know that if it is going to be airing on US TV, it's probably going to be edited heavily if it's not aired on a premium channel. Just because this was CBC. CBC does not edit very much.
Seems like it would be a good FX show.
Yeah.
That would be a good home for it.
Probably. I would agree with that. But this was also specifically made for the CBC streaming service, CBC Gem. So, who knows? But anyway, while filming it, they had a plague of fish flies as well. So he had to deal with this every day when working with the writer's room as the showrunner for that series. So this book really, the ideas kind of came and germinated around that time period. But after that, he just really solidified them, took everything he had done on Substack and all of his recent experiences and put it in this book. It is weird, crazy, and premium. Every single issue is going to be perfect bound, so they're going to be large. And that was by design, of course. So it's probably going to be, I think he said there was going to be at least one or two more issues, but it's every other month. So issue number 2 should be out probably in September. But I recommend it. Image is publishing it. And if you have Substack, or if you subscribe to a Substack, you'll be able to sort of like see it in its infancy, probably.
So I'll also co-sign this and recommend it, although that probably doesn't mean a lot to some people, because as I've said before, I can't be objective about Jeff Lemire. Like I can't. I think he's brilliant, and I will love everything he does. And so I will caveat everything I always say is I can't be objective. I literally have a long box that is nothing but Jeff Lemire written and drawn books upstairs. I've alphabetized everything. I have a Conan box, I have a Hulk box, and I have a Jeff Lemire box. I love the guy. But he's playing with familiar themes in this. The fatherhood is present again. Like you said, this does get into more of some of the fantasy elements, which we're seeing him do a lot more of. We saw that with the Frog Catcher book, and then with May's book. He's getting into some of that as well, getting away from just parts of what he did with Underwater Welder, but it's not quite Sweet Tooth, right? So, but I think I love it. I love it when he's still drawing. I love he's still doing art. It's beautiful, and it's gonna stir feelings.
Feelings. I've got feelings.
Don't catch them fifis.
Yeah, but anything Lemire makes, yeah, I don't think I can be fully objective anymore. But hey, it's good when you have that kind of writer, artist, that kind of creator. You can just kind of say like, yeah, of course I'm gonna get everything that he makes, everything that person does that puts out. I'm gonna get.
It will make you happy.
That is Lemire. So.
Now, Caleb, I understand you have some manga.
I do. So again, hadn't been reading like modern stuff. I've been checking out, but I subscribe, as do many people, to the Viz app. And by the way, as far as like digital comics goes, for like $3 a month, you get just an insane access to things that it's mind blowing. What all they have on there, free new chapters. Like I pay $3 a month, and for Shonen Jump stuff, all of Dragon Ball, everything, all of One Piece, all of you name it, One Punch Man, My Hero, Dr. Stone, a ton of stuff is on here. And so I'm going back and reading some of it. But yet again, I grew up rural Arkansas, right? Like really, really small town. There were like 200 people from kindergarten through 12th grade in my school. Not a lot of culture, as you might imagine. And so things like Dragon Ball were not, I didn't know about them as I was growing up. It just wasn't a thing. I think there was one or two kids in school who had parents who like took them to places and like let them see things. And they knew about things like Gundam and Dragon Ball, but it wasn't part of my world. And so I'm just now going back and catching up. And of course, Dragon Ball Z is the thing that gets most hype now, I think. And so I was like, let me go check this out. I'll read some Dragon Ball. So I did. I just wrapped up all of it, like all 180 something, I think, chapters or whatever it is for the first, the first part of the book. And it takes you from when Goku is just a little bitty toddler tyke running around naked with his little tail. All the way up till he's very much a grown person and has developed power and has learned a lot. And the key takeaways for this is the character of Goku. Akira Toriyama wrote this character. He has an unrelenting spirit, right? Like that is the key thing for this. He believes in fairness. He's not afraid to fight for what he wants. But he also is going to he is never going to give up trying to be the best and try to achieve. And this is the most upfront and in your face in the very final chapter of the book, where he's having to fight the character that you see here, who is the Demon King Piccolo. Interesting thing about the Demon King Piccolo, he's actually half a spirit. So the entity that we would know of and we would think of as God split himself in order to become God. He had to get rid of anything that would taint him. And so that's the Demon King Piccolo. And he's hates the world. Like he's ready to conquer it. He's a tyrant. He's ready to just, make hellfire and brimstone rain down, but he has to defeat all of Earth's heroes to do it. And so he enters this tournament, which is an ongoing tournament in the book. We see, I think, 3 iterations of it, from when Goku was a small guy to when he gets a little bit bigger. Like they always go back to this fight. And it's the champion of the world fight. Whoever wins this is the best fighter in the world. And this is the most like supernatural fight in the book, because you have this Demon King and who is all powerful and can like revive himself and is just off the charts. And they're fighting for the fate of the world. And Goku, by the end of it, will not he won't kill him, which is what he needs to do, because he doesn't believe in that. And because if he kills him, then the god is going to die, right? Like he doesn't want that to happen. Even though there are ways that they can circumvent it, which is really cool with the Dragon Balls. The Dragon Balls, they get one wish, they can bring things back to life. So there's a method to the madness. But he's going to take it all the way. Like he's going to take it to the max. And it was super fun. At the end of the day, like this is highbrow reading. I can say that fairly. Dragon Ball's lowbrow reading, but it's still worthwhile. It's still super fun. Yeah. It's action adventure all the way. It's for a younger reader, and I can absolutely see the appeal. If I had read this when I was 10, 12, I would have thought it was the coolest thing ever. And if I had access to the anime, would have been all over this, but didn't. So I'm excited about eventually getting to read some of the Dragon Ball Z. That's going to be my one of my next big reads. I'm wrapping up Planetary, and I've got Alan Moore's Swamp Thing on deck after that. So, but then I'm going to tackle some Dragon Ball. But yeah, the Viz or Shonen Jump app, well worth the $3 a month you'll spend. It's awesome. Read all this stuff for, you spend $3, you get the entire catalog. You can read the chapters for free. You don't have to pay extra for them. And if you read newer stuff that comes out every week, then you can go ahead and buy those books on there. But you do have to pay for like new releases for most things. But super fun, man. You meet all the characters. Bulma, the really creepy turtle master guy who's absolute sexist and just looking for tush. Like I just hear ZZ Top's song in my head every time it comes on. It's a shoujo. It's for boys, right? Like quote unquote. So, but I get it, man. This is an important book in the pantheon of like the influx of manga to the Western world. And I, again, glad I read it. It was super fun. I had a blast with it. And the Kamehameha is just rad. So,
yeah. I mean, I remember when they first dubbed the anime series based on the manga, and I got to watch Dragon Ball for the first time when it was first on US TV, and it was absolutely ridiculous, highly censored and edited.
Oh yeah,
and I could just imagine that the manga obviously doesn't do any of that, which is good because there's certain sensibilities that are a little bit different. That the kids in Japan will have absolutely no problem looking at, and a naked butt is not a big deal.
There's a lot of like baby toddler Goku penis in this.
Or Goku penis, yeah. I mean, again, not a big deal for a Japanese readership. But here would be like, oh my god, no.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's really interesting. To actually go back and read the original series. Oof, yeah. Because this spawned an empire. I mean, like the Dragon Ball Z, whatever. I mean, there's not a year goes by when there's not like 2 massive video games that are put out there, and another anime series or a movie or anything.
I think they're on Dragon Ball Super now. That's the current version. I think. Like I said, I think this wrapped up in 90 or 89, 90, 91, somewhere in that era. So we're now I'm going to hit that next and see what's going on with that, with the whole Super Saiyan and Vegeta and Piccolo and all that fun stuff. So,
pretty cool.
Now, Bill.
Okay, Steve, why don't you throw the graphic up?
I'm going to throw it up there.
Yeah, I wanted to like this more than I did. But I thought this was a good opportunity to reintroduce myself to the Hulk. So I'll tell you where the story is in this. At the end of the last series, and Caleb, you're going to have to fill me in on some of this stuff. This is what I came away with without really. I just have this issue. I did not read any of the Donny Cates, but where we last left off, there was a machine that kept the Hulk psyche at bay within Banner. There's a concept called the Green Door.
Yes.
The Green Door factored into the resurrection of Betty Ross.
Mm-hmm.
And the machine broke and Hulk's really mad.
Yes, all of that is true. So the Green Door actually goes back to the Immortal Hulk series, which if you haven't read that, like, it's amazing. Like that is. I didn't like Donny Cates stuff. I didn't care for that at all. So essentially, post that they took it to space, and Hulk's actual body was kind of being treated like a mech, and the psyche of Banner was inside it, but they kept the psyche of the Hulk also inside it, and they just pissed it off, and that's what fueled the thing. I didn't care for it, but yes.
Okay, so that's what I came away with. So we start the issue, and it's worth saying that the writer on this is Philip Kennedy Johnson, who's been writing Action Comics and Alien and a couple of other things. I think he did a Marvel Zombies, The Last God over at DC, which the gamer adjacent Last God, which I never read, but I've heard it's very
007.
Yes. So he's been associated with some marquee properties. My Hulk, mine. Okay, so you go on patent. So we actually start not in the United States, but we start in Iraq.
Yep.
Where there's effectively some people on an archaeological dig, and we are introduced to monsters. And I think that's the key word for this particular series. And I know in a lot of, not just the back matter in the particular issue, but in other interviews I saw, is that Philip Kennedy Johnson views the Hulk as a monster. And the way that Banner contends with that being a part of his psyche and an element of his life is going to be the cornerstone of the series. We have a situation where Banner's on the run. He's in Kentucky. We're introduced to what may potentially be supporting characters. There's a girl named Charlene who is running away from her father, her abusive father. There's some denizens in the diner that's nearby where Banner is picking up some sandwiches, a really cute dog, and a woman that I imagine is going to factor in. But as we go through the series, as we go through the story, the monsters that emerged in Iraq are popping up in other parts of the world. I believe, did they give them the name The Eldest? Is that that's the name that they provided? So, but we don't know a lot about that, but there's a reckoning that's coming, and somehow the Hulk factors into this. Hulk is also on the run from the FBI. And Tony wants to cut him a break. And when the Hulk finally does emerge, he basically tells him he's not the same. He's not the same chummy version of the Hulk that, sensibly occupied a role as an Avenger in the last few years.
Yeah, this ain't Peter David's Hulk either.
Yeah, and his words to them are leave him alone. Now, for me, I'm of two opinions of the Hulk. I think there's two areas where the Hulk works. One is in the American Southwest, where he's born. I think he works well if you did throw him into a real world situation. That's because it's part of the character's DNA. I think there's something about, mass destruction research, and there's just something about that particular area of the country where I think the Hulk works best.
Well, and there's space, right? There's space in that area. There's room for him to demolish things without collateral damage, right?
Right. But even at the same token, even that can be catastrophic. Yeah. Even that can be catastrophic. The other is as a fugitive.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's ever really been done well. But I also will cop to saying I don't have the wealth of knowledge that you do with the Hulk. I think the only time it's really been attempted on an ongoing basis was in the Hulk magazine in the late 70s, which echoed the TV series a little bit more. Even at some points accidentally calling him David instead of Bruce.
Yeah, there was that, and then in the Hulk Volume 2, when you get the Return of the Monster, there's an area there's a section in that where he's a fugitive essentially, and he's running from the law, and it works fairly well in that too.
Yeah. So I wanted to like this more than I did because I do think that Philip Kennedy Johnson is a very good writer, but it just didn't gel for me. It just didn't gel, and sometimes it's the juxtaposition of this effectively being a horror story and Hulk's green. There's a color imbalance, and not saying that an imbalance like that couldn't work, but as somebody that came in to this, I had so many question marks hanging over my head of what actually proceeded and what didn't. As somebody who hasn't been an active writer, that I gleaned that about the the Cates run. I think that's a lot of that was supposition on my part. But as somebody who is a Hulk aficionado, I'm really interested, Caleb, in regards to what you thought of this.
Yeah, so and I actually spoke about the annual or the precursor to this,
right.
Last time we were talking. So, Bill, I actually think if you had have read the Cates run, it would have contextualized why this was written the way it was written for you. To me, this was really just washing the taste out of that series out of the reader's mouth. It really was. He was like, yeah, so all of this happened, and we're just going to briefly mention it for continuity's sake, and then we're going to get back to what we were doing. We're going to go back to two things. Number one, we're going to go back to actually where Al Ewing and Bennett left off in that masterpiece, and we're going to pick up there why like they didn't put all the toys back in the sandbox, why it was disregarded. I don't know, but like there's a lot left on the table to play with from that, and we're going to do it. But we're also going to harken back to the first 5 issues. We're going to go back to the framework that Jack Kirby gave us about this character being a monster. We know that he was patterned after Frankenstein to some sense, and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And we are going to get back to some of that. And we're going to, yet again, we're going to unmoor him. We are going to make sure that he has, he is not grounded, and is, there's a lot of elements to this that are going to come back. First issue as a setup issue, I enjoyed it a lot because for me it was just that it's washing the tape. And I'm not just besmirching. Donny Cates has written some absolutely brilliant things. I am less of a fan of who did the art on that book. It was Invincible guy.
Otley.
Yeah, Otley. I don't like, people love Otley. I don't like him. I don't get it. His style is not for me. Great human being. I would buy him a drink if I saw him. His art is not my cup of tea. But so it was really just getting rid of that, right? So I'm excited to see the groundwork getting laid because I think they're going back and they're going to play more in that sandbox. I thought it was a fun first issue just because they are introducing you to this new like bestial, the elder or the mother.
I think you just hit it. I didn't have any fun reading this.
Yeah.
There was no fun for me.
There was fun for me. Number one, just like we're going back to a type of Hulk that I think I enjoy, but also seeing the setup for some of the things that they're going to do. The fact that they are going to be playing with the Mole Man, like I saw that and I happy clapped because I love the Mole. I think I'm like one of 2 human beings on the earth. I love the Mole Man. Like I adore that character, and it makes no sense why he is so fun. I think he's just rad. So I was excited to see that, but it's going back to horror, and so that's what excites me. I don't think it's supposed to be. I don't know if it's gonna be a fun book. And again, this is the first issue. Who knows? It could go up, it could go down. But I did enjoy it quite a bit. But that's because I like this version. I like seeing Betty again. I like seeing some of the characters that we're gonna see. So. And it's just it's a redirect for me, and I disliked the previous iteration so much that they didn't really have to do a lot of heavy lifting in the redirect to make me go, okay, this is better than what I just did. So,
one thing I will say about Hulk is that I do think that there are certain properties that benefit from somebody that has a long-term commitment on it. I think in terms of Marvel, about the only 2 that really have had that in recent times have been the Avengers and Thor. Or if it's an extended run, it's easy to not touch it, like was the case for me with what's his name, Nick Spencer with Amazing Spider-Man. I didn't touch that. I hated Deadly Foes of Spider-Man so much that I just knew it wasn't for me. Avengers with Aaron, I never clicked with it.
No, and
they gave him 66 issues. They gave him plenty of bandwidth, and that's coming from previously some very long runs. So I do think especially looking at Peter David's run, that I think the Hulk benefits from the long term. This didn't feel long term. It just didn't feel long term. It feels like it's going to be another 12 to 16 issues and out. And
it may be. I was actually surprised they gave Ewing the amount of issues that they gave him. You know, so I mean, but in the modern world of comics, I'm actually surprised when artists or writers get more than 12 issues on a series anymore. I like it when it's like, I like when you give them room to grow, room to tell their story, and it's not just going to be set up and done. So I don't know. I don't know how long he's planning on saying the book. You know, we'll just have to see. I do think that the way he mapped it out, there's 3 panels there where they show you some of the stuff that they're going to be dealing with and doing. Like you get a man thing, which is cool to see revert to an actual man thing and not whatever that little like shoulder puppet creature that Aaron made him into was. You see the mole man, and there's one more, and obviously you've got the big bad. So I think that there's at least going.
You got the real Ghost Rider, maybe.
Yeah.
With the hand.
So to me, they did map out like it was in a flaming motorcycle. Yeah, they did map out some places that they want to go. So I think this could be a longer run, but I also kind of like you. It feels like it could go either way. Might have just been a placeholder for a little bit.
And also the daughter of monsters speaking in metaphor, and they made no sense. I like that just turned me off. There were other ways to go about that. And like I said, I wanted to like it because it did feel like they were like, last thing didn't really work, you know.
Yeah.
But it just didn't connect with me. And I absolutely think a Hulk book could connect with me, but this just wasn't it. So
have you read Immortal?
First 3 volumes.
I was going to say, because they play a lot with like Dante in Immortal and stuff like that, and Paradise Lost, and it's really smartly. I think you like if reading the whole thing. I think you would enjoy it.
Yeah, and I liked it. I like that it didn't feel like a Hulk book,
right?
You know, yet still, you know, kept with that concept, and it was still core. It was still core to it. I read the first 3 volumes, and I also think like that may have been a better reading experience as a page turner instead of the digital swipe. I just think I would have gotten some more out of it, but I did what I read. I liked what I read.
I highly recommend it. Like they're coming out with an omnibus eventually, sometime pretty soon. I'm going to grab it, which will be me like triple dipping on that book. Yeah. Just so, and I have a page of it on my wall right now. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I have a question for you as a Hulk aficionado. Amadeus Cho, where do you come down on him?
I like him. I like him a lot. So, and I've read him since his inception. Like, you know, when Greg Pak introduced him, what was that? Amazing Fantasy. Actually, I think it was Amazing Fantasy 15, but it was a second version of that. Yeah. The character when he shows up in Hercules, so Volume 2 of Immortal Hulk turned into Immortal Hercules. That was a great book.
I loved Incredible Hercules.
Yeah, it was
that series so much.
I did too. I've got it all just pristinely kept upstairs as well. I think he's a fun character. I like him. I like him as a Hulk. Like I don't dislike him. There's a lot of people who didn't care for that twist in it. I think it works. It makes sense. I mean, they've done it to all the people who are tangent to the Hulk at some point. So, and I like books that he's in, like the Champions and stuff. So I'm fine with it. He's a fun character. I like when they show off how smart he is, though, and that's one thing that I don't think they've done a very good job showcasing lately, because he's a Hulk, and they're like, okay, he's going to be he's Brawn, right? Like that's his name, so he's going to smash shit and say some quirky stuff and just be kind of sexy and lean. But they're turning him more into almost what Scar was, and I want to see him being written smart again. So we'll have to see where they go with that. But yeah, no, I think he's a fun character. I like him better than the Weapon X, not Weapon X, Weapon H. Maybe that's what it was. Where they like, there's a spinoff where there's a new Hulk type thing that's also got Wolverine claws. It's a weird thing. So, but you know, it's fun. But when Cho is being written by somebody like Greg Pak, it's brilliant. He does an amazing job with it.
Okay. All right. I just didn't know. Because we never discussed it, but
I don't like him nearly as much as Rick Jones. I get happier when Rick Jones shows up.
Yeah,
but as far as just a sidekick,
I wish Rick Jones would be a Hulk proper. I mean, what was the A-bomb?
Yeah,
I would like him to just, you know what, transfusion or some fucking shit. And
see, like in the later issues of Immortal, he goes through some shit. So
okay,
yeah,
right. That I want to do because I think he's a I think he's a great character.
Oh yeah, like he goes through some
basically
shit.
adaptable to almost any situation in the Marvel universe.
Yep.
You know, he could
Well,
be.
I mean,
he could be on the X-Men for Christ's sake.
I mean, there was a point in the '90s where Rick Jones was in every book, tangential. You know, anything that was connected to the Avengers, the Hulk, anything. He was there either because he was Thor or he was, you know, somehow Hulk or whatever, you know, was happening at the time.
But one thing
until he got cancer in in the Jessica Jones book, which was really sad.
Yeah. I like Rick Jones a lot, especially like what they did with him with Captain Marvel. Speaking of cancer,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, G-Bomb.
There's been a lot of good characters spin out of Hulk books. I mean, there really has. Like in the long history of it, you know, there's not. I mean,
Rocket
villains
as well.
You know, who?
Rocket Raccoon is a Hulk.
Yeah.
Character. Yeah. Wolverine.
Who? Oh, is that a big one? I don't know.
Yeah, you funny. Wow. Okay. All right. I guess that's a signal we should start wrapping up a show. And when we wrap up an episode of Comic Book Bears, we go to one segment where we show off what we got recently, which is Geek Gets. And this one over here in my whatever. It's like I'm throwing my hands up. The one with the last name of Maury, he often says, "Oh, I didn't get anything." He got something this week.
I got stuff.
Yeah,
I got stuff. Like how rare is this that I get stuff? Mostly because
not
this
as rare
stuff
as you
came to
think,
me.
brother. You do. You just think you don't think you do, but you're
stepping it up.
Yeah.
Although we're poster free tonight, so
yeah, no poster this time because I was trying to think of something that would be thematically close to what we're talking about. I didn't have anything in my stock. So I kickstart a lot of things. Some of them again are successfully kickstarted, like like we mentioned earlier, Drumsticks of Doom and Requiem, and some things are not kickstarted successfully. But when they are, and I get the books that come out of them, I have like a super it's Christmas kind of feeling every time I open up the mailbox. And here's one set. I actually this is the Hairology Volume 1 anthology about hair. And it's just basically all these stories about, people talking about their hair, what it means to them, things from their past. There are also some fiction stories that are, some of them are fantasy, some of them are sci-fi. They're all really, just a great compilation. Wonderful art here. Wonderful writers who have actually involved themselves with this. I mean, we've got... let's see, you've got Gail Simone doing the opening introduction.
She was a hairdresser, right?
Who was a hairdresser, and her mother as well. And she talks very strongly about this. She's like, sometimes I feel like a comic writer who wants to be a hairdresser and not a hairdresser who became a comic writer. But there's just some really great contributors to this. Todd Black. Let's see, you've got... Oh yeah. Anyway, it is a huge list of people who did an amazing job with it. And I got the sort of, gay pride cover also signed. And it came as well, because I sprung for the extra books, the By Visibility volumes 1 and 2, also compilations with some great contributors. And these are all excellent books. I love every story that I've been reading in these has been amazing. Just like the Hairology, this is a wonderfully edited anthology. Both of them.
Can you give me the information on the By Visibility? Because there's somebody I want to plug that into.
Oh, absolutely! I'll send that over to you and just let you know who's all.
Thank you.
Yeah,
someone I know would just love that.
Oh, it's so, and they're so good. Like some funny ones, some like really moving ones, really really good stories. And then also Mark Russell, who we've talked about a lot on this show. With different books that he's put out over the years, funny, political, controversial, really interesting. He decided he wanted to put out a book of like Far Side doodles and comic strips that he's been doing over the years that he called Bunk Bed Mishaps. just usually one panel book, comics that he's created, and just had fun with it. And he was like, I don't know if anybody's ever going to like this or enjoy it or whatever, but I'm going to try kickstarting it. And it worked. It was successful. And he actually wrote a nice long letter that he put in here as well about, like, thanks. Everybody must be just as crazy as me to like this, but oh, sure, why not? And of course, got the signed copy with a postcard with recreation of one of these comics.
That's awesome.
So really, it's just really cool. I love having just a small, teeny tiny part of helping to fund something that brings the creator's joy to put it out, but also me as a reader brings me joy to see something successfully brought to life. So that's me. Those are my things that I got.
Very cool.
Okay.
What'd you get? Anybody?
Caleb,
I got a couple few things. So it was Prime Day since we were off. So I searched Prime, spent some money, got some deals and stuff. But a couple things that I got. One that I was kind of the most excited about was the Pride Robin pop, and it goes right up next to my Rainbow Batman Funko that I have in my case back there. So.
Yep.
Yay, we're Pride Robin bros.
Yeah.
So at some point I've got the Rainbow Batman back there, but I also have a case, and you can't see it from here, but I've got it's all the different colors, but it's all action figures of all the different Batman. So there's like 6 in there.
Cool.
It's really cool. So I got those. I got this for my husband, but also really for me. This is a novella of Nick and Charlie by Alice Oseman. I'm a huge fan of the Heartstopper series, both the book and the show. So this is a really cool novella about those two crazy kids. So get to read some literature on it. I also, because music is a thing that I enjoy, I picked up Shake Your Moneymaker by the Black Crowes, which is a great album. I love it. It's got some amazing songs. And then the shirt that I'm wearing, I don't know if you all can see what it is, but it's a Florence and the Machine shirt that I got. And I love it. I'm trying to rebuild. This is going to sound like one of those like humble bragging, like woe is me, but not really things. Since I lost my weight, because if y'all remember back 2 years ago, I was about 240, 250. None of my music shirts fit anymore. None of my band shirts fit, and I can't do anything. Like all of them are larges and extra larges, and I wear not that anymore. So I'm slowly just rebuilding shirts, which is kind of cool because then I can go and get stuff like new stuff. That bands that I've found since then and really cool stuff. So I'm kind of rebuilding my band t-shirt collection, but huge Florence and the Machine fan, love her, listen to her probably daily. So got my Florence shirt.
Okay,
Yay.
cool. Now you've said what your shirt is. Mine's pretty friggin' obvious. For anybody listening, it's the classic Rolling Stones with the tongue.
I'll look it up.
It says North American Tour 1975. So yeah. So Steve, what do you have on there?
It's just a design with a rainbow with all sorts of really cute little symbols from literature and read more.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's got like an open book with the rainbow coming out, but you have like saw the number 42 there. There's a dragon.
There's a dragon. There's 42. There's a windmill. Just a Harry Potter. There's a little Harry Potter figure over here.
Mm-hmm.
Just a bunch of different things symbolizing tropes from literature.
Yeah. Now, for people who are listening and not watching, this is always a segment I worry about the most because it is very visual. It literally is a show and tell. Yeah. So just want to make sure that I tell enough about this. So for my Geek Gets, this was a bundle that was available from McFarlane Toys. In the past, with the previous Retro Superpowers line, those were all Walmart exclusives. And there is one Walmart exclusive, which I need to get, which just hasn't hit the stores by me. The stores by me yet, which is a Black Manta figure. But the bundle was the 2 new vehicles and 4 of the 5 new figures. So I have the Superpowers, the Wonder Woman Invisible Jet here. I have the Superpowers 80s Retro Batmobile.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I have the original Kenner. But this is very much reminiscent of the original Superpowers Batmobile from the 80s there. And then the figures, these are the best sculpts they've had so far in this series. You have a very 80s Batman. This is really one of the nicest Batman figures I've seen in a long time. There's a Tim Drake Robin, which is a beautiful sculpt.
That's cool.
Absolutely beautiful sculpt. A really nice, long-haired, bearded, but not necessarily movie-specific version of Aquaman in the classic orange and green outfit. Really like this.
No hook.
Yeah, and there's Wonder Woman, and this is just a beautiful, beautiful color scheme.
Yeah, it is.
With the cape. Yeah,
with the cape. Yeah, it's just really nice. So these figures, they're just gorgeous. This particular wave, it's the most attractive wave they've had yet. I hope they do have like a Superman to go with that Batman, like a very 80s Superman. I'd love to see that. I already know, and they, as we go forward, we are getting some more esoteric figures. Like there's going to be a Peacemaker Judo Master 2-pack. So they are going to take deeper dives and into the array of characters that they have access to, and they did renew the license. DC did renew the license with McFarlane Toys, I think, to 2029. So we've got between the other McFarlane versions that are out there of the figures that we got a lot going to look forward to from here on out on this stuff. So they did a really nice job with Superpower so far. So those are my Geek Cats. All right, we're going to wrap this up. When we wrap an episode of the Comic Book Bears podcast up, we do so with a segment we call the Woofs of the Week. In the bear community, if you find a fella attractive, you woof at him. Woof. Purr. Or some other variation thereof. And we do something very similar here where we effectively woof at a product, which may be a comic book, but it may also be a film or a TV program or a charitable initiative, anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener, viewer, may be interested in sampling. I'll start, as I always do, with Steve. Steve, what is your woof of the week?
So my woof of the week goes out to a new mini-series that just debuted on Max. Not HBO Max, but Max. For one of their properties, where basically they delve into the history of this property from the beginning of time, 1930s, all the way to the present, with amazing contributors and interviewers and interviewees. Many of them are creators today. Some of them are creators and contributors from 30, 40, 50 years ago that are interviewed for this. But it's just a fantastic compilation. There's a very interesting take on it because obviously, some of the things that they're talking about are, they have a vested corporate interest in making sure that it looks good, but they also don't shy away from a lot of the controversies. And what I'm talking about is Super Powered, the history of DC Comics. It's a 3-part documentary series where they go into, what and how DC started, the how and why and who of the major characters within DC, as well as who's writing them now and who's drawing them now. So there's a lot of really good stuff. So I highly recommend it. If you have Max, you can watch all 3 parts right about now. And if you don't have Max, I'm sure somebody does. So find a way to watch it that way. But yeah, it's a pretty good series. Very high production quality. They really did a good job on this one. So, Bill, I'm sure you're going to be watching it as soon as
at some point soon. Yeah, very soon.
Yeah.
All right, over to Caleb. Caleb, what is your woof of the week?
Well, my woof of the week is also going to be a TV show, but it's a show that's on Netflix right now, and that is a show. It's a very, 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 very gay show called Glamorous. So it's. I didn't know if I would like it at first, but I have it fell in love with it kind of. So it's about this kid named Marco Meja, who is a genderqueer kid who goes. They start working in the makeup industry. They have been like doing their own makeup and trying to be an influencer, and that's not working out for them. But they just happen to meet somebody who is going to change their life forever. This lady in the show named Madeline Addison, who owns a makeup empire, but it's Kim Cattrall in real life, right? Like, so yay. I always love seeing her. So the book is just basically, it's a little bit derivative. It's a little bit kind of Devil Wears Prada. There's some Schitt's Creek thrown in there for good measure as far as relationship goes. But these are really just kind of fun characters, and they do a good job about exploring gender identity, but not in like a, just a arg kind of way. It's just like, this is who I am. And so, yeah, it's super fun. It's fun watching the drama. There's love triangles and interests, and it's really gay, and I love it. And I'm not that person, but there's a high level of bravery for those folks who are gender nonconforming, or even just gay men who glam it up and walk outside in heels every day. So I have a lot of respect for folks who do that, because at some level it's just kind of punk rock, and it's like saying fuck you and your standards. So I appreciate it for what it is. So yeah, glamorous. It's really fun.
All right, cool. For my Wolf of the Week, Steve, I'm going to ask you to put up a graphic for anybody who's watching. And this is it's a great picture of Daffy Duck here. And what I am recommending is the Merry History of Looney Tunes, which is a documentary series that is uploaded to the Kaiser Beams channel on YouTube. Kaiser Beams mostly has mini documentaries about anime properties, but he decided to do a very lengthy investigation into the history of Looney Tunes, and it covers from the original cartoons with Bosco, almost predate the sound era, which will go up to the present day. There's 7 episodes out. There's an 8th episode that is not available yet. He's been uploading these for over the past 3 years. I was looking on YouTube to see if there was something along the lines of this, since I'm in a big Hanna-Barbera animation mode. Came across this, and I was riveted. And it's a shame that this is a guy that's just doing this for his YouTube channel, and this is 10 times better than a lot of the bonus features that you'll get on Warner Brothers home video products available right now. So even if you only have a passing interest on the history of Bugs and Daffy and Porky, it covers everything from the creators to the censored cartoons when they got to the 60s because of racial insensitivities and the business dealings and the changes at Warner Brothers. We go up to effectively the 1980s. At the end of the 7th episode, which is the last one updated, there will be an additional one at some point, I believe this year. But this was remarkably well done, the Merry History of Looney Tunes. And if you're into anime, I would big time suggest you take a look at his mini documentaries. They're all about like 20 to 35 minutes about various anime properties. Might be up your alley too. So Kaiser Beam's channel seems to be a really interesting collection of stuff that he's put up there.
Awesome.
That's my Wolf of the Week.
Very cool.
Yep. Great if you're like working and you just want something in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Occasionally cheat to watch it while your pens are down, typing shit. I would recommend that too. I've had to do a lot of that the last few weeks, but it's changing. Yay! I had good news. I had very good news. All right, we're wrapping this up. Again, we are the Comic Book Bears Podcast. You can find us on the Facebook as Comic Book Bears Podcast. You can find us on the Twitter and the Tumblr and the Instagram and the Threads as Comic Book Bears. If you want to write to us, please do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. If you want to download us, please do so through Apple Podcasts. While you can, listen to us on Stitcher Radio and many of the other podcatching platforms. Until next time, I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
You're going to hear a woof and an explosion if you're listening to the audio version, and we'll be back real soon. Take care, everyone.
Whoa.